Hi everyone, today I wanted to break down the Pump Act for you. What are your new rights as a pumping parent? First, let's talk about what the Pump Act is. The Pump Act is an expansion of the Break Time for Nursing Mothers Act that was part of the Affordable Health Care Bill in 2010. And this is all part of the Fair Labor Standards Act. So the Pump Act was not passed on its own as a standalone bill, but it was passed as part of the omnibus spending bill at the end of December. So what passed is not what was proposed. It's very similar. There are a lot of things that stayed original to the original bill. However, there were some changes made that leave a little bit to be desired, but it's a start. We still have a long way to go. So let's just get into it. So Senate passed the bill December 21st with a vote of 92-5, which is amazing. And there are articles online where you can find out who those 5 senators were if you would like to send them a harshly worded letter. That's just up to you. So the Pump Act expands access to break time to express milk. The Break Time for Nursing Mothers Act previously only covered hourly employees and for 1 year after giving birth. So the Pump Act actually expands that to hourly and salaried employees. Finally, nurses, teachers, you are covered. Didn't mean to clap that loud. But finally, your rights to express milk for your baby are protected. And it's nonsense that salaried workers weren't protected before, but we're there now. These take effect immediately. The only thing that kind of has to wait is employers are given 120 days after the act was put into place to become compliant. So basically, if your employer right now is not compliant with providing space and time for you to take pump breaks, they have 120 days. Like, you need to notify them, but they have 120 days to make it right before you can pursue legal action. Now, that's a really long time. There are other elements to this. We'll get to that in a minute. So what exactly are your rights? Pumping parents have the right to a space to pump milk that is not a bathroom, that is shielded from view, and that is free from intrusion from coworkers or the public. Specifically, not a bathroom. Now, this doesn't have to be a permanent space. This can be a pod, a lactation pod. This can be partitions set up, curtains, anything that affords you a clean, shielded from view space that is private, that is only going to be accessed by other nursing parents. That is what is required for as far as space goes. As far as break time goes, it states that you have the right to express milk when you need to. This does not limit the amount of time that you can take. They cannot limit the amount of time that you can take. So whenever you need to pump, which is generally every 2 to 3 hours when you're trying to keep up your milk supply, I would aim for at least every 3 hours. That's when you are allowed to take your break time. Now, I know in some industries this is really, really hard. And there are ways to work with that. So the breaks don't necessarily have to be paid. However, breaks are to be considered hours worked unless you are completely relieved of duty during that break time, the entirety of the break time. That is specifically word for word what it says. It says completely relieved from duty during the entirety of such break. So if your breaks are already paid, like if you work in retail, I know that you have like a 15-minute paid break, an hour lunch, another 15-minute paid break. You can pump during those times. If you're pumping during your lunchtime and you're already clocked out, then you're not going to be, paid for that because it's your lunch hour where you're regularly clocked out. I hope that makes sense. Also, if you plan to keep working while you're pumping, so if you have your own office and you just close your office door and you're working while you're pumping, you're paid for that. That does not count as taking an unpaid break. You are working, you're getting paid for that break time or that pump session. If you are using wearable pumps, you work in a hospital maybe, and you're pumping while you're working, you're charting, that is paid. That does not count as, taking an unpaid break or anything like that. Unless you are completely relieved from duty, someone is taking over the job that you would normally be doing during that time that you are taking the break must be paid. Considered hours worked, basically. So hopefully that clears that up. That I'm trying to make it as clear as I possibly can. So these rights apply to parents who are providing breast milk for their child for up to 2 years postpartum. Remember, it was 1 year before. Now it's up to 2 years. So that is amazing. That helps line up with the American Academy of Pediatrics updated recommendation to continue nursing for 2 years. And I mean, we talked about this before. The AAP finally caught up with the whole rest of the world where everyone was already recommending 2 years. They've finally caught up, and now you have the protection legally to make that happen. And, I can always make another video on nursing and pumping past a year. It's a whole different ballgame than nursing an infant younger than a year. It also applies to parents who are expressing milk after experiencing the loss of a baby, the adoption of a child that they are providing milk to, and if they are providing milk to a baby that is not in their custody currently. Because it is a medical need when you are lactating to be able to remove milk every couple of hours. That is a medical need. And this is a way of accommodating for that and protecting that. So now let's talk about the small business exemption. Businesses with fewer than 50 employees can claim a small business exemption to not have to meet these requirements if it poses a significant hardship to create that space, to give that paid break time, and it has to be a significant impact on the business, either financially, logistically. Let's see. Yes, the wording, specifically the wording, is significant difficulty or expense in relation to the size, financial resources, etc., in comparison to the size of the business. So, it doesn't mean that businesses with fewer than 50 employees just don't have to do it across the board. It means that they can be exempted from it if they can show that it poses a significant hardship to the business. So go in, with that in mind. Also, the 50 employees are total regardless of work site. So if you have coworkers who work remotely, they work from home, and it doesn't just apply to how many are in this office with you. It is total employees for the company. Anyone who fits the definition of employee according to Fair Labor Standards Act. As long as the employees meet that definition of employee, this is full-time and part-time, they count toward that 50 or fewer employees. So what can you do if your employer is not complying? Now, like I said, they have a little bit of time right now to get things ready to go. So if they do not comply, if your employer says, well, we just don't have that space right now. Like, I don't know what whatever they say, they're not giving you that break time. They're not giving you that space. You have 10 days, or you have to inform them that they are not meeting their requirements according to the law, and give them 10 days to remedy that before you can take legal action. Unless you are fired as a result of requesting that break time or space, or if they flat out tell you that they do not intend to accommodate that. In that case, you can file suit immediately. You can take legal action as soon as those things happen. You don't have to wait the 10 days. Now, if you watched my last video or anything about the Pump Act recently, you'll know that air carriers were exempted from this. But let me tell you what the actual exemption is. It's not like they're wholly exempted from it. So for air carriers, this takes effect 1 year after an enactment. So December 21st of this year would be when these take effect for air carriers. Air carriers are not required to completely relieve a crew member of duty during break time during flights, or to provide such a break during critical phases of flight, which would be, taxiing, takeoff, and landing. They're not required to allow crew members, flight attendants, to take that break time right then. And they're not required to completely relieve them of duty during those pump breaks. So the flight attendants, the crew members, will still have that protection to be able to pump milk for that 2 years. And, that's something. And the other things do apply, but it puts a limit on when those breaks can be taken, basically. And, sort of requires them to be pumping while working, or working while pumping. So those are some clarification, because I was looking and I could not find anything at all that explained what the exemption was for aircraft carriers. I am glad that it's not that they just completely don't have to do anything, that the Pump Act states. It is something. I understand their reasoning. And that would be a very hard job, I think, to be a pumping parent, working on an airplane, flying day in and day out. Like, that seems very, very difficult as it is. So hopefully this doesn't impose a greater hardship. I can't imagine that it would. I think that probably any issues that this would cause have already been going on. So hopefully we can catch up a little bit, that this isn't the end. We'll keep moving forward. In that omnibus spending bill was also the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Now, I'm not going to go into that, but basically it gives pregnant workers protection to have accommodations specifically related to having a healthy pregnancy. So being able to have a stool to sit while they're working, or not have to lift heavy things, those kinds of those kinds of things. And that's amazing because we haven't had that kind of protection before, because pregnant people should be, you know, in the protected class, and they're not. But this is kind of moving towards that. If you want me to do a full video on the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, I can break it down like this one and we'll go over everything. Just let me know below as a comment. I mean, I think that this is a major step in the right direction, but I feel like it's so, it's not, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit ridiculous that it's 2023 and this is just finally coming into play. I feel like it should have happened in 2010, you know, with the Break Time for Nursing Mothers Act. But, I mean, we're trudging along, we're catching up. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments below and share this with your friends if they are expecting, if they are nursing, if they're having issues with their employers. Definitely share this video to help break down what your rights are. I will link the bill itself, the text of what your rights are. I will link that in the bottom of this, in the description of this video, so you can look at it and see exactly what it says word for word. You know, you don't have to take my word for it. I will cite my sources. That's the English major in me. So I hope this was helpful to you. Like, subscribe, do all those YouTube-y things if you want to see more from me, and I will see you next time. Thanks very much. Bye.